Some people in Alabama could be receiving a COVID-19 vaccine as early as mid-December. General Perna, the chief operating officer of Operation Warp Speed, recently spoke with State Health Officer Dr. Scott Harris. They say the goal is for people to have access to a free vaccine regardless of their financial status or location. The vaccine would first be made available to healthcare workers and first responders. It would also be distributed to those who are most at risk, those who are chronically ill, and seniors throughout Alabama.